ever since I was little, I've always wanted to go to Salem in Boston. If you ever watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch, you'll remember Salem the cat. You'll probably remember learning about the Salem witch trials. I've always been so fascinated by everything to do with witches and generally the supernatural and all of that. So I finally went to Salem this April and I had the loveliest trip. I knew I was going to love it, but it was just the most special place. Now, I've made this video partly for me to remember all my memories, partly to show you. But one of the main reasons I really wanted to make it is that before I went, all of the travel information that I saw was saying you must go in October and go for Halloween and see it all decorated. But actually, I really loved going in April. I would really recommend it to anyone that's thinking of going there. And I feel like a lot of the things that I learned either from speaking to people locally or just generally going around were not things that I saw when I Googled it. So to tell you a bit about Salem, it's a really, really old place and there is just so much history everywhere you go. And what I loved about it visiting in April is a lot of things the locals were telling me closed, let's say between December-ish to April-ish. So it had just started to reopen again, and for that reason it was a little bit quieter. There were loads of independent shops and restaurants and things, and every time I went in somewhere I got chatting to people. Something that it was so funny, I didn't like shout it from the rooftops just because you don't when you're a girl on your own, but this was a solo trip, and at the time I was putting all of my pictures up and lots of people had said to me, I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you there on your own and what's your experience like being on your own? Honestly, I felt really safe there. It was a really, really lovely place. Because it was that bit quieter, people were really up for a big chat, but everyone was so forthcoming with local recommendations and things. So lots of the places that I went to eat, like this Gulu Gulu was lovely. I also went to Finn's, this delicious restaurant with loads of fresh fish. I went to the Lobster Shanty, which was a local kind of, you know, when you picture an American bar and it's a bit dark and like the red neon lights and all of that. It was kind of like that, but it was just so friendly. They were all places that people recommended for me to go. And then you see another thing that I did, which I was so glad I did. Can I just say, do you recognise this, by the way? This is the Ropes Mansion, which is Alison's house from Hocus Pocus. There were loads of Hocus Pocus filming locations because lots of it was filmed in Salem. The other thing that I did was on the very first night, I went on a walking tour, and it was the best thing I could have done because Salem is a completely walkable place. Like the whole time I was there, I didn't get one taxi, train, anything. I walked every single day, and it was kind of large and vast enough that you could go for a big long walk, but nowhere was so far that you couldn't walk it. So because I'd gone on this walking tour on the first night, the rest of the trip, I was kind of retracing those steps and going to visit places and just stand in a bit more detail. I mean, look at these roads and the architecture. Honestly, I would just go for a walk, and so many places had those plaques on that you could read a bit of history about the house or wherever you were. That would take up ages. Now look at this. I found a Taylor Swift quiz. I had such a lovely night. Again, if you're travelling on your own, that was such a good idea that I didn't really think about how great it would be. But I turned up on my own and said, listen, if anyone needs someone else in their quiz group, can you put me with them? The very next girl had come on her own and needed a group, so me and her got together. Then the next two girls that came, she had gone to school with them and hadn't seen them in ages. The four of us had a lovely time. So if you are solo travelling, it's definitely something I'd do again. If you just book yourself a quiz, you've got a common ground and you've got like a reason to be chatting to people and a common ground that you're working towards, so it doesn't feel awkward or anything. But I did so many lovely things here that were free. That's another thing I would say. If you just want to go for a big explore and have a look around, that is fascinating enough as it is. But in addition, this is the House of the Seven Gables, for example. There was the most amazing tour guide, Stephanie. So lovely, so passionate, loved all of the history, really brought it to life. I ended up going on another one of her tours, which was a pirate tour, which I never thought I would book, but she was so great. I just wanted to go on more of her tours. And there's so many things like that that you could do. that then, you know, if you want to book activities for yourself, you can. If you see, like, shops like this are everywhere. I got lost in these shops all day, every day. There's just so much to look at. It's incredible. But one of the reasons I'm so happy I went in April is all of the locals were telling me that even as early as September and as late as November, because everyone wants to come and experience the magic of Salem for Halloween, there are queues around the block to get into any of these shops, and apparently it is so busy. They said it's like Christmas every day or Black Friday every day, whereas I felt like I had the place to myself. And as someone that is used to being packed on a tube like sardines, it was just so lovely to go to somewhere quiet and tranquil, walk, have the place to myself, and have loads to potter about into. Even that was like a night I wasn't feeling well. I got some pizza. This flea market was incredible. I found all of these lovely vintage prints that are old-fashioned but colourful, and I took so many of them home to put around my house. I think I took some photos of those. I'll put them up in a second, but I'm just going to show you. It was like nostalgia like this everywhere you went. But in general, if you love witchy things, the supernatural, if you are a bit more spiritual, let's say, than religious necessarily, it is the loveliest place. And I found that lots of people I spoke to were telling me they maybe visited once and then moved there. Like, people seemed to have this really deep connection to it, the same that I did. Everyone was so helpful. Now, a particular shop I really want to call out, this one was actually beautiful, Emporium 32. I got loads of things for my house in here, like this tea set. I got it in like a green though. Let me just tell you about House Witch. House Witch was my favourite place in Salem. The very first day I got there, I wandered in there at 4:30. It was the first place I visited. I had the loveliest chat with the House Witches, and they were like, Rose, just to let you know, on a Monday at 6:00, we do a free meditation. You're really welcome to join. So I went to the meditation with them. They recommended I go to the lobster shanty for dinner. Then I went on my tour. And then I think most days after that, because they were right by my hotel, which was the Hampton Inn, by the way, and I would really, really recommend. My room was huge and I was in a perfect location. But I'd go into them every day, tell them what I did the day before, tell them what I was planning to do. They went above and beyond to make me welcome, and I really didn't feel like I was on my own because I popped into them. These cakes I took home for my family, oh my gosh. And then just before I left, this shop was finally open. I left with Britney Spears and I watched Beetlejuice on the way home. Honestly, the best holiday ever.